Hello class, this is your teacher Mr. McDougall with your next Photoshop tutorial. As we're getting started, we're going to learn some of the more basic tools, features, and menu options that you'll need to know to create your first projects or get started. This one will be shapes and effects. So we're going to go over a new tool, the various shape tools, and the FX menu on some cool things you can add to your elements. So as always with classwork, this has exercise files. Let me walk you through downloading it a couple more times. Remember to pause or slow down the video if you have to as you remember how to do this part. Click on the exercise files. Only a couple we're going to play with today. And let's go to these three dots. Click on open a new window. And now you'll see this tab with this download button. Click on that. Perfect. Now it's been downloaded. So let's go to our downloads folder. Click on the Finder. Go to downloads. And here it is right here. Here's our shapes and FX. We've got to extract it from the zip file by double clicking on it. When you double click on it, that will open up a blue folder with the exact same name. So now the zip one is useless. Right click, move to trash. Make sure you do not try to open the zip file because that will not work. You want the files that are in the blue folder. Now let's open our Google Drive, right click, new Finder window. And we're going to move it to our Google Drive first before we start editing. We don't want to edit with it in our downloads folder. Let's go to Google Drive, My Drive, go to the Intro to Graphics here, new folder. This one is 503 Shapes and FX. So let's bring the exercise files into that one. Yes. Awesome. So you can see here's your exercise files. There's only three. A few that we're going to just play with today and experiment. These first few lessons are all just kind of about playing around and exploring the options that Photoshop has to offer. So let's open all three of them in Photoshop right now. Have Photoshop open. Remember to click on it down here to open it up into this panel. You can open all three however you want. Remember File, Open, or Command O, or as I showed you in the previous lesson, just select all the photos and just drag and drop them onto Photoshop right there. So you have all of them shape 01, 02, and 03 all together. For this one, I'm just going to have you start with just one. We're only going to edit two out of the three, but I'll let you pick whichever one you want to start with. So start with any of these that you choose. Let's say I'll start with this one. I'm going to go with this one. If you picked a different one, that is also totally fine. So we're going to practice with some of the various shapes in the shape tool, or in the shape tool menu. So over here is your tool menus. We've been kind of talking about a couple of them. We'll just do them one at a time or so. We started with the brush. And if you hover over your mouse over each one, it pops up with this little window that explains the tool, gives you the shortcut, a little video of what it does, and it really helps guide you through each one. Near the bottom, you'll see a shape tool. Yours looks like this. It says rectangle tool is the one yours is going to start with. So if I click on the rectangle tool, I come over here, my mouse now looks like a little crosshairs, and it allows me to click and hold my mouse and draw a rectangle, just like that. By default, it'll probably be black, but you can change the fill right here. If I click where it says fill, I can pick the color, and I can pick a brand new color. Let's say I want it to be red. Okay, now I have a red rectangle. So that's the first shape. And the list of shapes you're adding are right here. So the first one we added is a rectangle. The next one we're going to add is a square. So now let's add a square. There's no square shape tool. We're going to use the same rectangle tool. But now we are going to hold shift on our keyboard. If I just click and drag my mouse, you see how I can kind of draw whatever rectangle shape I want. But if I hold shift on my keyboard, holding shift now, and now I drag my mouse, no matter what, it stays a perfect square the entire time. So as long as I'm holding shift, I know I got a perfect square. So I'm going to let go now. By default, it stays on the same color, but I can always change it again. Going to fill. Let's say this one I want it to be green or a totally different color. Perfect. What might happen on occasion, and I'll let you know, I'll show you if this comes up. Occasionally, if you're drawing different shapes, what might happen is they might end up on the same layer and they might get connected. If that happens, I'll show you, but it's an easy way to fix by just clicking away and then coming back. So let's see if that happens and I'll show you. All right, the next one is an oval. So now we're going to draw one oval. So now we can't draw an oval with the rectangle shape, but a lot of these tools are grouped up. If you see these tools, you'll see they all have these little tiny arrows in the bottom right, or most of them do. That means there's actually more tools grouped together with them than you see on the front. So there's actually other shape tools in with the rectangle tool. The way you can see the rest of them is to click and hold on the tool. If I click and hold my mouse, this pops up. So now it shows me actually there's a lot of different shape tools that are grouped up in this little spot. So to do an oval or a circle, we're going to go with the ellipses tool. Click ellipses tool. And now if I draw like that, now it's an ellipses or some kind of circular shape. So I could draw like this and make an oval. Again, let's change the color. Each shape that you do, pick a new color because we're going to add different effects to it as well. Perfect. Now the next one is a circle. So the way we draw a circle is the same way we drew the square. We're going to use the ellipses tool, but hold the shift key. If I hold shift and click on it, I can see no matter how I move it around, it stays a perfect circle, just like that. And this is a good example of what just happened. So even though I drew this separately, they stayed on the same layer. They did not disconnect it. See how they're connected as one? If I try to change this, they're connected now. That might happen sometimes, and that's totally fine. The best thing to do is just Command Z to undo your shape, and just click over here so you don't have any layers selected. See, I have this selected. I'm just going to click out, and now I don't have anything selected. So now if I draw my circle, it shouldn't be a problem. See, now it ended up on its own layer right there, which is what I wanted. So that might happen where they get connected. It's no big deal. Just click away and then click back. All right, let's pick a new color for this circle. Good. 2 more shapes to go. Be careful. If you try to move it like that, if I try to move this, I actually ended up drawing it because I don't have the move tool. If you want to move your shapes around, go back to your move tool, and then you can move the shapes like that. The move tool is the only one that moves elements around. The other ones will not do that. If I try to do it with this, I'll just draw another circle. So the next one after circle is a 6-sided star with round corners. So let me show you how you're going to do a star. You can do a regular star, and then we can customize it. So to do a star, we're going to go back to our shapes, click and hold to bring up the various shapes. We're going to go to the polygon shape right here. Polygon is a various sided shape. So click on the polygon one. And by default, yours is going to look like this. Let me reset mine like that. Excellent. Oh, that's fine. Oh, look at that. I moved my picture off. How about that? See, that might happen on accident sometimes. That's totally fine. I moved it off. I can just bring it back over here, and now I've put it back where it needs to be. Or I could have reset my window. Window, workspace, reset, just put everything back to normal. Okay, so with the polygon shape tool selected, by default yours looks like this. It says 5 and it has 0. So if I draw it, it will draw a 5-sided shape. If I just click and drag like that, it's going to draw this 5-sided pentagon. But I want it to be a star. You can control it to be a star by going over here to this gear icon. If I click this gear icon, see where it says star ratio? As I drag this down, it becomes more star shaped. So there's no exact percentage you need to pick at, but you'll see how much star shape it can be as I do it. So if I drag this down a little bit, let's say to like 80%. If I drag this down, see how it looks more like a star? Let's try again. Let's drag it down a little bit more. Let's go maybe to 50% right there. Now it's even more star shaped. So that percentage just kind of depends on how much you drag that down. So right now it's still a 5-sided star. So I'll Command Z to undo. This is the number of sides right here. By default it's on 5. I click here and I type in 6. Now it will be a 6-sided star. Sorry, here we go. See, now it added an extra side to the star. So however many right here is the number of sides. The last thing I need is that it needs to be rounded corners, which is this icon right here. See how this says 0? Same thing with the star ratio. If I just click and drag this to the right, it increases the pixel count. There's no set number that this needs to be. Just the more you drag it, the rounder the corners get. So if I'm at 22, let's drag that. You can see how the corners are rounded now. Let's drag it a little bit more, see what happens. 80. Super round. Looks like the Carl's Jr. logo. I can even mess around with the star ratio again. Maybe that's 2 star shape for me. I want it to be more like this. There we go. There's my nice 6-sided star with round corners. Again, just experiment with all of these features. There's no right or wrong way to draw your star, but just do it in a way that you find fun. And you can experiment with all these different tricks and exactly what it looks like. The last shape we're going to do is a custom shape. So you can pick any of the custom shapes that are listed in the shape tools. So if I go back to my shape tools, I'm going to click out so I don't accidentally put these on the same layer. Click and hold my tools, my shapes, and go to custom shape right here. Custom shape. You'll notice up here, if you go up here to the very top, there's shapes. There's actually a whole list of different shapes you can just draw with this tool, like animals, trees, boats, flowers. If I click here, here's a rhinoceros. So now if I draw my shape, check it out. It is a rhinoceros. Or you could pick something else. Maybe I want it to be a gazelle, or maybe I want it to be a tree. Maybe I want it to be this tree right here. Boom. Now I have a tree. Whatever shape you want to go with. Just pick any of these shapes. Explore them all. You got boats, you got flowers, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do this gorilla. How about that? Why not? All right. Looks good. Let's fill it with our last color. What color have I not used yet? Like a tangerine? Sure. Why not? Awesome. So those are our 6 shapes for now. Now we're going to go into FX. So now we're going to add the following effects to each of these shapes right here. So the first one, the rectangle, we're going to add a stroke, which is a border. So let's go to my rectangle layer, which is this one. Make sure you have the correct layer highlighted because we're going to use this FX tab right here. If you don't have any layers highlighted, like I don't, you'll see it's grayed out. I can't do anything. Make sure you have to have the correct one highlighted to bring up this menu and affect that particular layer. So for this one, I'm going to add a stroke. If I go to FX, you can see there's a whole list of effects right here. Let's go to this one that says stroke. And yours might look like this. A stroke is a border. So by default, yours is probably on black. And if I increase the size, you can see how the border gets increased like that. So the stroke just means it's a border. So if I mess around with this, I can increase the border of the rectangle. I can also change its position. It might be on the outside. I could change this to the inside. So now the border grows on the inside instead of the outside. Or I can have it be centered so it grows on both the inside and the outside. Like that. However you want to do it, just add a stroke or a border. You can also change the color. If you don't want it to be black, maybe you want it to be green. Now I have a green border. Whatever you want to do is totally fine. And then click OK when you're satisfied. Perfect. These are also effects that we can hide, just like we did with our layers. If I click and hide this, I can turn it on and off, no problem at all, or drop it in the trash can if I want to delete it. All right, let's go to the next one. Let's go to our square, which is this one. This one's rectangle. This one was also the rectangle, but let's rename this one to square so I know what's what. All right, so for this one, we're going to add an outer glow. So go to the effects, go to outer glow, which is right here. Similarly, not the same as a stroke, this one just glows instead of being a solid line border like this one. So this one, again, you can mess with the opacity, these sliders right here. You see, as you mess around, this is kind of just for you to explore and see what it does. So I can increase the size of the glow like that, like now it's got this bright glow. Spread, make it thin or thick, maybe like that. Mess around with how you want it to glow. I have this holy square now. And again, we can change it. If I click here, change the color. Now it's more of this reddish pinkish glow. So whatever you want to do, totally fine. Just add a glow to the square. Perfect. All right, let's go to our oval, which is this one right here. I'm going to rename this one oval so I know what's what. This one, we're going to add a bevel and emboss. What that means is it kind of makes it look three-dimensional. Let's go to FX, bevel and emboss right here. This one, and you can always move these out of the way too if you need to adjust it so I could see, because otherwise I can't see the oval. Let's move this. So the bevel and emboss is kind of this 3D edge effect right here. So if I increase the size, see how it's doing that beveling thing? So it's like chiseling away. Now it's more three-dimensional, almost cone-shaped. You can make it however you want, just subtle. You can soften the edges a little bit. Smooth it out. However you want to do it. Now I got this cool three-dimensional effect. You can also change the angle. If I adjust this angle right here, See how just kind of the way the shadow is looking at it? So it's kind of like shadow darker on this side, like the light is coming from above. I can move this around however I want. So do however you like with that, and then click OK. So perfect. Now that's looking cool. Let's go to the circle now, and we're going to add a gradient overlay. So let's go to this one, the ellipses 2. I'm going to rename this one to circle. This one's going to be a gradient overlay. So let's go to our effects and gradient overlay right here, this guy. All right, so by default, this one might be black or white, something like that. Yours might look more like this as you get started. That's totally fine. We're going to mess around with it. Okay, so to change it, we are going to click in here. So see this rectangle where the gradient is? If you click in here, it brings up this one. And now yours might look kind of like this or something like that, but we can change the color. So it says add a 3-color gradient overlay. So to change the colors, you're going to click on these little squares at the bottom right here. This one and this one. Let's click on this one first. Click. Come in here to color. You might notice the theme that whenever you see these color pickers, it allows you to change colors right here. So let's say that's my first color. You can see it turned pink. Let's change this black to something else. Go with this. Click OK. You can see how this pink and purple now. But we want to add a 3rd color. So to add a new color, you just have to click anywhere down here on the bottom underneath the bar. If I just click right here, boom, here's a new color to play with. Let's do 3 colors. Let's make this one somewhere in the green. There we go. And then click OK. You need to make sure you're clicking OK in these windows too. If I try to go back here, it won't let me do anything because this window is the one that's in front. The primary window is the one you need to deal with first. I can't go back and do anything here because these windows are still open. Click OK, and I can mess with this too. Again, I can change the angle. So right now it's going straight up and down. If I want to turn it this way, now it's more in a diagonal. Feel free to play with this however you would like, and then click OK. All right, 2 shapes to go, almost there. The star, we're going to add an inner glow. So let's click our star layer right here, polygon. I'm going to rename this one to star. FX. This one's going to have an inner glow right there. And again, just like before with the sliders, this is for you to kind of experiment and mess around. Maybe you want a bitter glow. Maybe you don't want it to be white. Click on this box to change the color. Maybe you want it to be, let's say, red. Okay. I can adjust the choke or how far it comes in, the size. Now it looks a lot more like the Carl's Jr. logo right there. But feel free to just mess around with this however you want. Now it's glowing. You can also change the way the glow comes from. By default, it comes from the edge. But if I change it to right here, to center, now the glow is coming from the middle and branching out like that. However you want to do it, totally fine. Then click OK. All right, the last one, our custom shape, our ape, or whatever shape you decided to go with, we're going to add a drop shadow. So let's go to our effects. Last thing, drop shadows all the way at the bottom right here. What this does is it puts a shadow around the subject. And again, you can mess with the size and intensity and the distance. If I increase the distance, it's further away or it's closer, or I can make the spread a little bit more, size a little softer. However you want to do it, totally fine. Just mess around with all of these. You can again change the angle. If I mess around with the angle, I could change which direction the shadow is coming from. As I'm doing that, you'll notice that not only is this shadow changing, but the shadow on this one is changing too. If you don't want that to change, if you only want one to change and not all of them, we just need to uncheck this box. This one says use global light, kind of like there's a giant global light source shining down on the whole image. If I turn that off, it only affects the layer I have. So with that turned off, I can adjust the shadow, and it's not affecting the circle anymore. So you can mess around with that. That looks good. Click OK. Perfect. So those are the effects that we are learning about. You're not done with this assignment just yet. I want you to take a screenshot of your work here, but then I want you to do the exact same thing you just did on one of these other 2 files. You don't have to do all 3, just do one more. So whichever one you still haven't done yet, you could do this one, or Or if you haven't done this one, you can do this one. But pick just one other file and do the exact same thing. Repeat the exact same steps. Rectangle, square, oval, circle, six-sided star, and then these things, but change it up with your settings. Mess around with different glow colors, different stroke colors, different settings altogether, just so you can see the capacity that Photoshop has to offer. Okay, and then take a screenshot of both of them. Take a screenshot of this one you worked on with me, and then take a screenshot of whichever other one you do, and turn both of those into this classroom assignment. Okay, as always, have fun. Let me know if you have questions.